give Joy a moment. Thank you, Joy. And so today I'm just going to go do a quick overview of RDN. I'm going to talk about current projects and resources we have, as well as some new trainings and upcoming projects we have that you can take access to. So I'll go through that. But first, I'd like to do our land acknowledgement. So before we get started, I always want to take a moment to acknowledge the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples across Turtle Island. As an organization, we acknowledge that we're all treaty people. This means we all have a responsibility to affirm our commitment and responsibility to improve relationships between nations and to improve our understanding of the vast differences between the many Indigenous people across Turtle Island and their own unique cultures. We recognize our role on this land is in advocating with Indigenous communities for better funding and opportunities with programs. We are committed to connecting our programming to the recommendations of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls Report, and the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People as viewpoints for our reconciliation journey. So I want to start off first with who we are. So as some of you may know or may not know, we are a nonprofit that works with rural communities across Canada. We understand that rural communities have unique needs, challenges, and opportunities, and this is because they have different realities in terms of social and economic structures and infrastructure that may or may not exist in these smaller communities. So our work essentially looks at 4 pillars. We create innovative tools and resources, including guides, toolkits, and training that are created in partnership with communities and specifically designed for rural communities. We provide expertise and boost capacity of communities and organizations so they can implement their own projects. And we work to bring awareness to rural issues and advocate on behalf of communities. And finally, we support communities with accessing funding. So next is our 4 program areas. So these are our core program areas. We support housing development in rural communities. We also address homelessness and houselessness. Thirdly, we look at integrating and retaining newcomers in rural areas. And lastly, we look at the community development, but we look at it from a holistic perspective, which I'm going to talk about shortly. So next is our services that we offer within our core programs. So we do data collection and needs assessments. We also do policy development and implementation for both municipalities and organizations. We support with accessing capital funding for housing projects and distribute the Reaching Home funding in Alberta. We also do consultations with communities. We help them develop strategies and action plans, and we deliver various workshops and trainings to help them build capacity. And a side note that I like to let people know is that RDN does not receive any core funding. So the projects and trainings that you're going to hear about today are mainly developed through grants or through our fee-for-service work. Next, I'd like to just take a moment to acknowledge our members. So RDN has 8 post-secondary institutions as its members, and representatives from each institution make up our board of directors. So we really appreciate their valuable feedback and work with them in developing projects and our future direction. So now I'm going to talk about rural revitalization and the 3-legged stool. So all of RDN's programming and services really go around the concept of rural revitalization or the 3-legged stool. So you might have heard us talk about this before, and it's really the core of why we do what we do. So the 3 legs represent firstly, the well-being of the residents, secondly, the local economy, and third is having that safe, healthy, and affordable place to live. So we realize that all these pieces are interconnected in order for communities to thrive. And if one leg is neglected, then the stool will collapse. So we really see that in the example of, let's say, workforce. So if we don't have housing in our community that can, help our workforce, then we're going to see that businesses can't get the employees they need, then therefore they have trouble with being able to grow. And then if people don't, as employees, don't have an affordable place to live and be in a community, then they're not going to be there and stay. And so that really affects the sustainability of the community. So we see that the social and economic really goes hand in hand. So first off, I'm going to talk about our sustainable housing initiative. So this initiative really focuses on building capacity in the housing development for rural communities. So we really look at the pre-development and the development phase of looking at affordable and the housing mix. So we've supported communities in numerous ways. We look at developing housing needs and demand assessments, delivering community engagement sessions, developing strategies and enhancing local action plans, as well as housing development policy, and all while ensuring that the collaboration and partnership building through this vehicles like research are placed at the forefront of our work. So this is really what SHI focuses on. So next slide, Joy. We're going to talk about our step-by-step to develop affordable housing. So we've released a second edition in 2023, and it reflects changes that have happened in the recent years. So this information was assembled by a national advisory committee, and it really brings clarity to the affordable housing process. So this is free to download off of our website. Now, for those of you that like hands-on style better, we have just launched our affordable housing course where you can learn this information from the step-by-step guide, but in a more hands-on, engaging way. So this course is I always trip up on this word, asynchronous. So you can access it when it works for you and actually go through the course based on your schedule. It's very collaborative, informative, and interactive, so you can have discussions with other participants, you can ask questions. So the QR code that's listed here in the slide, you can use that to follow to the link for the affordable housing course, or I'll have that link later for you at the end of the presentation. So we'll make sure you have access to that. Next, I wanted to touch on Paths for Housing Co-op. So we do have this guidebook on our website. And the reason I bring it up is we're seeing more and more rural communities are looking at alternative ways to develop housing. And so one way to consider that is with a housing co-op. So in 2025, CMHC will be doing another intake of its co-op housing development program. So I like to make communities aware of this because this could be a potential funding model for your community if a co-op is something that you're considering. So if you want to learn more about this, just get in touch with me and I'll get you in touch with our SHI team to explore this further. So another project we have is our Enabling Housing Choice project. And in September, we released a guide, which can be found on our website as well. So this guide is broken into modules and it guides the municipalities in improving their housing policy to really increase that diversity in their housing mix. So the guide addresses barriers to housing development and really looks at collaborative and sorry, I'm tripping over my words today, locally relevant solutions that can help in developing more housing choice. And currently, we have a Enabling Housing Choice North project. So in our initial project, we work with southern and central communities, and now we're focusing more on northern communities in Alberta. And so this project currently has a call for proposals. The deadline is Monday, December 2nd. And if you follow this link, you can find the application form and then learn more about this project. All right, next I'm going to touch on our rural immigration team. So first off is our READY toolkit, which stands for the Rural Employers Awareness on Diversity and Inclusion Toolkit. This was developed to support employers with successful attraction, retention, and settlement of newcomers in rural places. The toolkit includes templates for workplace inclusion policies, hiring practices, and practical tools to support employees. What really differentiates this guide is that it's easy to follow. It really emphasizes practical ways to implement diversity and inclusion tools in your workplace. So if you're interested in this, you can download a free copy from our website. Now, to complement the Ready to Work toolkit, we're now doing a project that actually allows us to do training with employers, chambers of commerce, various workforce groups that are looking for more information on how to have equity, diversity, and inclusion training in their workplaces to really support newcomers and create that welcoming environment. So this training is free. It can be customized to your organization's needs and be based on the time that you have, whether it's an hour or a few hours. And the deadline for this training is March 31st in 2025. So I wanted people to know that this project is going to come to a close next year. So if you're looking for any of this training, please get in touch with us so we can get you in the schedule for next year. All right, another guide that I would like to let everybody know about is our Ukrainian guide. And what this guide looks at is Ukrainian evacuees are facing way different challenges than other newcomer groups when it comes to looking at housing and settling in Alberta. So we did some research and we developed this guidebook, and we have it so that Ukrainian evacuees can access it. So we translate it into both Russian and Ukrainian as well, so that they can access the guide. And then we also developed a guidebook for housing providers. So then housing providers can have the information on how they can support evacuees. Like, for example, when you may be fleeing, you may not have the opportunity to gather all your paperwork. So Ukrainian evacuees may have more of a struggle with trying to get various paperwork or various references. So that's some of the stuff that we talk about to housing providers so that they understand there's just some different needs with Ukrainian evacuees versus what they may normally be used to with other newcomer groups. So again, these guidebooks can be found on our website for free download. And then I want to talk to you about two workshops that are brand new for RDN. We're now going to be offering with our rural immigration team two different workshops. The first one is called Immigration as a Rural Workforce Strategy. It can be anywhere from 2 to 3 hours, and it's all about those practical hands-on tips on how do we look at welcoming newcomers, treat it as a workforce strategy for an employer or for a community. And we really walk you through all those little pieces to really make that practical, something you can implement, and then you walk away feeling like you have some direction on how to go forward. Now, the second workshop is the community strategy to welcome newcomers. So this is the largest thing we have seen in your workforce attraction or in welcoming newcomers, is creating that sense of belonging and sense of connection. That's what's really going to allow people to stay in a community because they feel they belong, they create those connections and they want to stay. And that's really important for a community, especially when they're looking at increasing workforce or encouraging more residents. So we look at this as really encompassing the whole community. How do we bring that together and really have the whole community look at how they can develop strategy and do daily activities that'll really create that welcoming environment so that people want to stay? So these are two workshops that Rural Immigration is offering, but I do want you to know as well that we do equity and diversity inclusion training, and we focus very much on that practical side. So that's something that really differentiates us. And so if there is a customized training that you would like, please get in touch with us and we'll be more than happy to help you out. All right, next I'm going to just touch on Shelter Pulse, and Joy's just going to play us a video here. This gives us an overview of the program.
Rural shelters are often stretched thin for time and staff. So imagine having a database of resources to enhance supports and services right at your fingertips. The Shelter Pulse database hosts a collection of research-based, trauma-informed policies and procedures. These valuable resources were developed in partnership with rural and remote shelters from across Canada, who came together with the shared goal of empowering shelters with the tools they need to enhance their policy development. The policies and procedures are customizable to the unique needs of each shelter and community, and the platform offers a comment function to provide feedback, ensuring the documents remain relevant and accessible. If you're in the women's shelter or gender-based violence sector, we invite you to create an account with the Shelter Pulse database to access the policies and procedures. Visit shelterpulse.ca. Shelter Pulse, building capacity for rural women's shelters across Canada. The Shelter Pulse database was initiated by the Rural Development Network and Mountain Rose Women's Shelter Association and funded by Women and Gender Equality Canada.
Thank you. So yes, you
Rural
can
shelters.
access. No worries. And so you can access our Shelter Pulse at that www.shelterpulse.ca. It has all the different policies in the database to be accessed. So I just want to touch on the initial project is complete, but now we're exploring the next steps for this project because we really want to allow more training to be developed, materials and resources. We also want to deliver that training so that people can get that hands-on experience. And we want to ensure that this database is sustainable as well as its policies, because it was one much needed tool that they needed in terms of doing their day-to-day work. So as we have more information on that, we'll keep you informed. So next I want to touch on housing and service needs estimations. So we do have a toolkit on how to estimate rural homelessness, and you can find that on our website where you can ask for a free copy to download. So what makes us unique in terms of how we do our estimations is we don't only estimate based on who's homeless, but also those that are at risk of homelessness. So what we're realizing when we do estimations is it's important to look at all the housing insecurity to really get a feel for who's currently needing what services when. Because we're hearing from lots of communities too that sometimes they will do some work in terms of helping people out with a damage deposit or if they're behind on a bill. And sometimes those little pieces can really just help them avoid being in the system or needing that extra support. So we really see that as a community, you need to look at that holistic picture of what makes housing insecurity happen. So next I'm going to talk about in 2023, we did the Alberta Housing and Service Needs Estimation. So you'll see this graphic here. I just want to give you quick highlights. We had 21 organizations that we estimated with that represented 45 rural communities in Alberta. And I do note here that there was only one on reserve Indigenous community in this study. And the one like I don't know how to say this, but the one stat that just blew my mind is based on these survey results. There was a minimum of 7,320 community members experiencing housing insecurity across rural communities in Alberta. So that is just, to me, just a staggering thought to think there's that many people that are having issues with housing insecurity. So on the next slide, I'm going to show you what the top 3 reasons are that people are being housing insecure. And it's the low wages, inability to afford rent or mortgage payments, or increasing housing costs. So you'll see everything's very much tied to money, and then the challenges that they're having either in paying or having the revenue to pay for their housing. So on the next slide, this is to me another staggering stat. There's often this misconception that people who are homeless or housing insecure are not employed. This finding from the survey in 2023 is that 69% of housing insecure people are employed. And just to give you the reference the other way, because when we do survey results, we get data from both housing secure and housing insecure residents. 70% of housing secure residents were employed. So it's almost the same stat. So there is this misconception they're not employed, where really the issue is what are the other things like what we talked about earlier, like low wages or not be able to make the payments are more of an issue when we're looking at housing insecurity. So on the next slide, we show this one. These are some missing amenities or some things that then people go without when they're housing insecure. The one that really stands out is that 23% are missing sufficient and affordable heat. Now, with the cold snap that has come across Alberta, you can imagine that it's like that's almost a quarter of people who are facing housing insecurity are not able to heat their homes. So to me, that's a pretty, yeah, not a good stat. I don't want to say it's a good stat at all, but it gives some reference of what people are going without just to try to keep shelter. So now we are going to be doing another estimation in 2025. So I wanted to let you guys know that that call for expressions of interest will be coming out in the spring of 2025. So we will be doing a provincial estimation again. So if you're interested, please send us your email. We can put you on the contact list. So as soon as the information is available, we can send it out to you. Or if you subscribe to our RDN newsletter, keep an eye out because as soon as we have that call for expressions of interest, we'll ensure it's on the newsletter so that you know about it and have time to let us know that you're interested. And as mentioned before, when we do estimations, we really look at the whole spectrum of homelessness. But if you want to participate in this provincial estimation and you want some data that's beyond the standardized estimation, we can look at customizing that for your community. So know that that option is available to you. So we can connect you with our homelessness team and they can really figure out what fits best for your community needs. So next I'm going to touch on our First Nations data collection. So this is a project that we worked on with the intent to really create a First Nations led, informed, and adaptable data tool that looked at the area of homelessness with First Nations, including those who live off a reserve as well. And it was meant to be culturally sensitive and trauma informed. We wanted to create meaningful and reciprocal relationships and really empower First Nations communities to advocate for themselves. So on the next slide, you'll see these are just some of the tools we have. So we have the guidebook that you can download from our website for free and get some information that way. As well, we also have a storytelling piece that you can use that as a template because the difference we're finding with the decolonization of the data is that storytelling component is really, really important with First Nations. And so this guidebook and this template will really guide you through how to get that data so you can really have some meaningful data on how to move forward. So next I'm going to touch on Reaching Home. So RDN does administer the Reaching Home funding for the province of Alberta. And this really tackles homelessness outside of the 7 major cities. And on the next slide, Joy, I'm going to show some stats. So there's about $4 million in Reaching Home funding in Alberta, but that had to stretch to support 46 projects. So there's a lot of demand. We had $22 million in funding requests and only the $4 million to fulfill. So the need is way greater than the funding that is available. Now, we were fortunate enough to get 500,000 in funding from Homeward Trust Edmonton because they really recognized that we were supporting communities around Edmonton. So we got that in for November to April, and we were able to get that funding to assist those communities as well. So this is a thing that we're seeing has great need in our rural communities, and we're advocating every day to try to get them more funding to help them. So in the fall of 2025, so next year, we will be doing our call for proposals for the 2026 to 2028 Reaching Home funding. So for the 2 years. So I wanted you to know that will be coming up if you have projects. I also kind of like to give you guys an idea of what type of projects can be funded. So we do help out with capital costs associated with that supportive or transitional housing. We also can look at funding for housing support or outreach workers that really help people who are homeless and in getting services or helping them find shelter. Shelter pods, we actually this week just had a presentation from Drayton Valley. They have implemented the shelter pods in their community with great success. And this is an alternative to emergency shelter. And so this is done really well in some communities, and it's something you can consider. And we also would consider helping you out with funding on that as well. Operational costs for your MAT program, emergency shelter, that is something that we can look at as well. And then lastly, data collection. So the estimations that we were talking about earlier, some communities need help in funding to be able to do that data collection. This is a source of funding for that, so they can get that done. And I can't emphasize enough that every rural community and what homelessness looks like in their community is different. So it's really important to get that data collection to understand what's going on in your community. And that's maybe what differentiates us a little bit in how we collect data versus a point in time count, is we really look at the spectrum of homelessness and ensure we have the at-risk people in there as well. But when you know who is in your community experiencing those risks, then it's a lot easier to develop the programming services that they need. And I'll touch on coordinated access as well. So this is a project we had this year, and we're actually in the process of finalizing our toolkit. So I just wanted to let you know that that will be available in January on our on our website, not on our kit, on our website for you to download. This really shows how to do coordinated access in your community. And the benefit from it is really by coordinating those services, then when someone's accessing, they don't have to tell their story over and over again. They're able to access what they need, and then it also creates some effectiveness between organizations and eliminates that duplication. So there is pending funding opportunities to continue this work. We want to provide training in communities on how to go about developing coordinated access. So we're working on that right now. We'll let you know once that becomes available. But if you have a coordinated access story that you would like to share, or if you'd be interested in this training, please don't be afraid to reach out to us and we can get you put on our list. So next I'm going to touch on Indigenous engagement. So in RDN, we've really focused on our reconciliation journey as a group and really make sure we're incorporating that into our work and into all the things that we do. So allyship is really important to us, and we're working with our Indigenous liaison, and he is really showing us how to do that incorporation of the TRC and things from UNDRIP. So I found that personally very key. We're also working on personalized land acknowledgements, which I'll talk about in a minute. It's really important that we look at doing things with Indigenous communities, not to. So next I'm going to talk about, we've developed 2 workshops that our Indigenous liaison Emil is willing to do for organizations. The only caveat I have here is we do like to keep them in a smaller group. So we usually like to have maximum of 15 people. We could do them virtual, or we could actually come to your organization and do it. The reason we like to keep it small is it makes it more interactive. Emil gets a chance to really work with people. For example, with this one, on developing your personalized land acknowledgement so that you really can create that connection when you're doing presentations or meeting with other people. You can really connect how your words and actions can really create that allyship with Indigenous people. And in the smaller groups, that really allows Emil to do more of that. And then the second one is Emil is willing to work with your team and sit down and look at how do you incorporate the TRC's call to actions and the UNDRIP protocols. How to really incorporate that into your work to make it meaningful and show that allyship with Indigenous people, because it's all going towards developing those relationships and those trust. And that's really what's going to allow us to further our work and really show that reconciliation piece. So that's some of the things that Emil is willing to work with you or your organization on. And then I just wanted to highlight that we do have a new RDN website. So this is what it looks like. When you go onto our website, just scroll down and you'll see where there's the various programs, services, and trainings. And the other thing I like to highlight is on our resources page. So when you hear me talk about all these different toolkits and guides, they're all found under our resource page. You can just type into the search what you're looking for and it'll bring it up. So I just wanted to guide you to where on the website you can find these tools, and then you know where to look. So RDN is committed to helping you. So if you would like to book a meeting with me to go over what your needs are, what the challenges might be, some things that you would like to address, I'm here to have a free consultation with you. So here's my booking calendar. I believe Joy just stuck it in the chat. Thank you very much. And so feel free to go through my calendar, see if there's a date that works with yours. If there isn't a date that works, don't be afraid to reach out to me. I'll give you my email in the next slide and I will figure out a date that works because I want to make sure that if you want to meet, we have that opportunity. So on the last slide, thanks, Joy. I just want to say thank you for giving us your time today. We do appreciate that. I hope you learned a little bit about RDN and about some of the trainings and different projects that we have. If you go to this QR code, it takes you to a link tree that literally lists every single resource that I've talked about today. So you can just click on it and it'll take you immediately to that resource on our website. So it's a really handy thing. So I will ensure that you get the PDF of these slides today, and then you can use that QR code to go to all the links and learn more about the ones that you're most interested in. You'll also see my email here. Feel free to reach out to me. This is why I'm here. I love to talk to communities and see where we can help. And so feel free to reach out. If it's not something RDN can do, sometimes we know of other places where we can help you get access to help. So just don't be afraid to reach out and let us know what you might need. And that concludes our info session. So I'll open it.